Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
Today we're sharing 5 stories. First, we'll explore how AI-controlled flaplets are fighting a 55% rise in severe air turbulence, but progress is stalled because airlines like IATA's members are selling the critical safety data. Second, Vogue featured a guess ad with an AI-generated model, sparking backlash. The AI's creators admit diverse models don't get likes, revealing a troubling algorithmic beauty trap. Third, China's Premier Li Qiang is proposing a new global AI organization to counter US influence, as companies like Huawei close the chip performance gap on NVIDIA's technology. Fourth, Japan is offering a $550 billion package to help Taiwanese chip giant TSMC build plants in America, creating a strategic semiconductor iron triangle against China. And fifth, Indian IT giant Tata Consultancy Services is cutting over 12,000 jobs, blaming AI's impact on management, but the real story might be clients demanding 20 to 30% price reductions. Let's start with a single statistic that might just change your entire perspective on air travel. The kind of severe invisible turbulence that can throw passengers against the ceiling has already increased 55% since 1979. And it's not just a bumpy ride. One passenger on a recent flight described the scene as complete havoc, saying, "We saw blood on the ceiling." And the problem is set to get much, much worse. Projections show that severe turbulence is expected to triple worldwide by the 2050s, threatening major flight routes and potentially changing people's willingness to fly at all. But a new wave of innovation is fighting back. One company, Turbulence Solutions, is ditching the old strategy of just avoiding rough air. Their CEO says, you don't need to accept it. You just need the right counter signal. They've developed small flaplets for aircraft wings that act like a bird's feathers, making tiny adjustments to smooth out the ride. Their claim? The technology can reduce the turbulence felt by passengers by more than 80%. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. The global aircraft fleet has a lifespan of 20 to 30 years, raising the question of retrofitting thousands of existing planes. Actually, it's a huge economic and logistical challenge. Airlines have to weigh the cost of a multi-million-dollar upgrade against the cost of burning extra fuel to reroute around bad weather. For example, some active winglet systems can cost over $300,000 per plane to install, but the payoff can be huge. One major airline invested in winglet upgrades and expects to save 65 million litres of fuel every single year. So it's a massive financial gamble. Researchers are now deploying artificial intelligence to solve the problem. One system uses deep reinforcement learning, a process where the AI learns to counteract chaotic airflow through trial and error, almost like a toddler learning to walk. Now, get this. Using this kind of AI to control a plane's flight surfaces presents a massive regulatory challenge. Regulators like the FAA require that every system on a plane is predictable and explainable. The problem is, deep learning AI is often a black box. It works, but we can't always see exactly how it makes its decisions. This is the central hurdle. Can we ever fully trust an AI we don't completely understand with the lives of hundreds of passengers? It's a question the aviation industry is wrestling with right now. Other teams are testing ultra-sensitive microphones that can detect turbulence up to 300 miles away, and advanced LiDAR systems that create a 3D map of the air ahead of the plane. So the thing is, these solutions generally fall into 2 main camps. You have reactive systems, like the AI-controlled flaps that respond to turbulence in an instant, and you have predictive systems like LiDAR, which can see turbulence coming up to 10 kilometers away, giving pilots enough warning to change course. The ultimate solution might be a hybrid system that does both predicting the bumps ahead and reacting to the ones you can't avoid. What really brought this to a head, however, was a revelation from a leading atmospheric scientist. He says the biggest bottleneck isn't technology, it's data access. Believe it or not, he revealed that research scientists have to buy turbulence data directly from the airlines. And he says, it's not cheap. This critical safety data is primarily owned and managed by the airlines themselves and by organizations like the International Air Transport Association, or IATA. They run a platform called Turbulence Aware, which pulls real-time data from thousands of aircraft. In 2023 alone, it generated 38 million turbulence reports. But this data isn't a public good. It's a proprietary asset shared among participating airlines to improve their own efficiency and safety. This creates a wall blocking outside researchers who want to innovate. And the final implication is a bit chilling. If some airlines adopt superior turbulence cancelling technology, will they market it as a premium feature? Research shows that over 90% of passengers are willing to pay more for comfort. This could create a two-tiered system of air travel where those who can afford it buy a smooth ride ticket while everyone else is left to ride the bumps. We were just talking about the tangible physical challenges AI is helping to solve in aviation. Now, let's shift our focus to the digital world, where AI is creating a very different kind of turbulence in the fashion industry. A seemingly impossible collaboration became a reality yesterday. For the first time ever, the fashion Bible Vogue has featured an AI-generated person in an ad for the clothing brand. Guess. And it has ignited a firestorm. While Vogue says it was an ad, not an editorial choice, critics are calling it a massive step backward. A plus-size model with over a decade in the industry called the move lazy and cheap, and another kick in the teeth for the fight for diversity. But that's not the whole picture. The real turning point is a shocking admission from the company that created the AI model. The creators, Serafin Valora, were approached directly by Guess's co-founder on Instagram. They defend their work, saying what they're doing is no different from using real supermodels in perfected ads. But when pressed on diversity, they told the BBC they've tried posting AI images of women with different skin tones, but, quote, people do not respond to them. We don't get any traction or likes. This brings us to a phenomenon some are calling the algorithmic beauty trap. Social media algorithms, especially on platforms like Instagram, are designed to maximize engagement. They learn what gets the most likes and shares, and they show more of it. Research shows that content with conventionally attractive people gets amplified by the algorithm. This creates a vicious feedback loop. If you post diverse content that doesn't fit the narrow mold, the algorithm buries it, penalizing you financially. So creators feel trapped into reinforcing the same old beauty standards just to stay visible. They followed up with this. At the end of the day, we are a business and use images on Instagram that will create a conversation and bring us clients. Interestingly enough, the creators also claim the technology is just not advanced enough to create plus-size models. This claim is a huge point of debate. Many experts argue the AI struggles simply because its training data is so heavily biased toward thin bodies. When the AI is asked to generate something it hasn't seen as much, the results are often distorted or inaccurate. So the problem isn't that the technology can't do it, it's that the data it was built on reflects society's existing biases against diverse body types. This is happening while their own website lists a key benefit of their service as being cost efficient because it, quote, eliminates the need for expensive setups, photographers, hearing models. A traditional fashion photo shoot can easily cost over $10,000. When we place that cost alongside generating a single AI image, which can be as little as 75 cents, the economic incentive becomes clear. It's a massive incentive to move away from human teams. One former model says this isn't about innovation, it's about desperation and need to cut costs. With Vogue being called the Supreme Court of the fashion industry, the question everyone is asking is, has it just ruled that the future of beauty is not only unattainable, but completely artificial? However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer to this problem: digital rights. If a company can create a perfect model from scratch, what's to stop them from creating a digital twin of a real celebrity without their consent? This is a huge legal and ethical grey area. Lawmakers are already scrambling to catch up, with new bills like the No Fakes Act being proposed to protect a person's voice and likeness. This isn't just about one ad in one magazine. It's about who gets to control our image in the digital age. That question of control over our digital lives is at the heart of our next story. The debate is escalating from individual rights to a full-blown geopolitical struggle for dominance over AI itself. In a direct shot at Washington, China's Premier Li Qiang warned that artificial intelligence risks becoming the exclusive game of just a few countries. We're seeing two fundamentally different visions for AI's future emerge. The US model is more decentralized and market-driven, focusing on innovation and protecting civil liberties, while at the same time, China is pushing for a centralized, state-controlled approach where AI development serves national interests. This isn't just a tech debate, it's a clash of ideologies, And this wasn't just talk. Beijing has officially proposed creating its own global organization to govern AI, positioning itself as a direct alternative to US leadership. The timing is everything. This move comes just days after the US administration released its own blueprint aiming to expand American AI exports and maintain its edge over China. The situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, Washington is tightening its grip with export restrictions on advanced AI chips from companies like Nvidia. But on the other, these sanctions are forcing China to innovate at a breakneck speed. To get around the restrictions, Chinese companies are furiously developing their own domestic alternatives. For example, Huawei's Ascend 910B chip is now reportedly delivering about 80% of the efficiency of Nvidia's powerful A100 chip, and in some tests even outperforming it. They are closing the gap. And to prove it has the firepower, the announcement was made at a massive conference in Shanghai featuring over 800 companies and 3,000 high-tech products. Tech giants like Huawei and Alibaba were front and center, showcasing China's AI muscle despite the restrictions. And here's where their strategy gets clever. To compensate for potentially less powerful individual chips, China is focusing on system design. At that conference, Huawei unveiled its Cloud Matrix 384 system. It links together 384 of its own Ascend chips into one supercomputer, a brute force solution designed to rival Nvidia's top-tier systems. So even without the best individual components, they are building incredibly powerful machines. Beijing says it wants to share its AI advances, especially with developing nations in the global south, arguing that current governance is fragmented. So what does sharing its advances really entail? After all, it's about more than just exporting technology. China is also exporting its model of tech-enabled social governance. We've seen this in countries like Zimbabwe, which partnered with a Chinese firm on a facial recognition system, and Ecuador, which used a Chinese loan to build a massive surveillance network. This is about exporting an entire philosophy of control along with the hardware. They're framing this as a fight for equal access against the system they say is designed to lock them out. This highlights a fascinating paradox. China is calling for global openness in AI, but at home, it operates one of the world's most restrictive data environments. So the question becomes, who gets to define what open and safe really mean in an AI framework led by Beijing? This is no longer just a tech rivalry, it's a geopolitical power struggle for influence over the world's most transformative technology. The question is, as countries are forced to choose a side, who will ultimately write the rules for the future of artificial intelligence? Speaking of which, while China pushes for global AI influence, a powerful counter-alliance is forming to control the very foundation of all this technology. The computer chips. The most unexpected news in the financial world today has to be this. Japan just announced a massive $550 billion investment package aimed at the United States. But the real story isn't just the number, it's that a huge chunk of this money could go to a Taiwanese company to build factories on American soil. This isn't just a trade deal, it's a strategic power play on a global scale. Essentially, what we're witnessing is the birth of what experts are calling a techno-democratic alliance. Think of it as a semiconductor iron triangle with the US, Japan, and Taiwan teaming up to build a secure technology supply chain, one that's deliberately designed to counter China's growing influence. It all comes down to one thing: computer chips. The US is critically reliant on Taiwan's semiconductor giant, TSMC, for the world's most advanced chips. That reliance is a massive economic security risk with Taiwan's proximity to China. This move, however, puts TSMC in an incredibly tough spot. The company's own founder, Qiang, has publicly warned that these geopolitical pressures are a direct threat to the company's global dominance. They are literally walking a geopolitical tightrope, trying to satisfy the national security demands of the US and Japan without alienating their major clients in China. This deal aims to change that by bankrolling the construction of chip plants in the US, and the scale is staggering. TSMC has already announced plans for a $100 billion US investment on top of $65 billion already pledged for its plants in Arizona. Now, it's important to understand what bankrolling really means in this context, because it's not a simple cash handout. The vast majority of this $550 billion, around 98% of it, isn't direct investment. It's actually loans and financial guarantees from Japanese state-owned banks. The ultimate risk? is shouldered by Japanese government institutions, not private investors. Now, Japan is stepping in to fuel that fire. Japan's top trade negotiator, Ryosei Akazawa, went on the record confirming that projects eligible for the $550 billion package are not limited to US or Japanese firms. To qualify, a company like TSMC will almost certainly have to use critical Japanese components in its new US factories. So, what's in it for Japan? The key to understanding Japan's motive is its dominance in the hidden parts of the chip industry. Japanese companies like Shin-Etsu, Chemical, and Sumco control over half of the entire global market for silicon wafers, the raw material for every chip. They are also leaders in essential manufacturing equipment and chemicals called photoresists. This deal strategically locks their most important suppliers into the heart of America's new chip ecosystem. While there was talk of the US retaining 90% of the profits, Akazawa clarified that only applies to a tiny fraction of the total package. The real prize for Japan is avoiding a potential 10 trillion yen, that's nearly $70 billion in punishing tariff costs. They're spending big to save even bigger. So what we're seeing isn't just a financial transaction, it's a $500 billion alliance, redrawing the global map of technology manufacturing. It all begs one critical question: who will control the chips that run the world? That semiconductor alliance is all about building up a critical industry, an investment of hundreds of billions to create jobs. But technology is a double-edged sword. In the IT services sector, a different story is unfolding, one of job cuts driven by AI. A tech giant just announced it's cutting over 12,000 jobs. We're talking about Tata Consultancy Services, India's largest IT provider and a company long known for its culture of being a stable place to work. That reputation is now being put to the test. This is a significant shift, because for decades, getting a job at a company like TCS was seen as a ticket to lifelong job security. These kinds of mass layoffs can create what experts call layoff survivor syndrome among the remaining employees, leading to anxiety, stress, and a drop in productivity. The move will eliminate roughly 2% of its workforce, primarily targeting middle and senior management roles. While an uncertain demand outlook is part of the story, the real driver being cited is the deployment of AI. But why target middle and senior management? Well, AI is getting incredibly good at automating tasks that were once the core of a manager's job, things like project tracking, resource allocation, and reporting. What we're seeing is a classic corporate delayering. In fact, a recent Gartner report predicted that by 2026, a fifth of all organizations will use AI to flatten their structures, eliminating more than half of their current middle management positions. This pivot is particularly disruptive for India. For decades, the Indian 1T business model has been people heavy. The more people you had, the more projects you could take on, and the more you could bill. It was a headcount-based game, but now that entire model is being upended. Companies are shifting towards an automated, IP-driven model where they create their own AI platforms and sell high-value solutions instead of just manpower. Phil Furst, the CEO of IT advisory firm HFS Research, says the impact of AI is eating into the people-heavy services model that has dominated the sector for decades. If that was just the appetizer, the main course is the immense financial pressure. Furst reveals that in this cutthroat market, clients are now demanding staggering price reductions of 20 to 30%. That's the kind of pressure that forces a company to completely rebalance its workforce just to maintain profit margins. When we place the rise of AI alongside these client demands, the full picture becomes clear. While AI is the convenient public reason, the massive price cuts demanded by clients are a huge underlying driver. So it's a perfect storm. Economic pressure is forcing the change, and AI is providing the tool to make it happen. And this isn't an isolated event. The decision by a titan like TCS is seen as a major signal for India's entire $283 billion IT sector, which is already contending with clients holding back on spending and delaying projects. Ultimately, this story extends far beyond one company. It's about the future of work. You have over 12,000 experienced mid-career professionals who now face a daunting challenge. Industry reports show that nearly all tech roles will be transformed by AI, creating a massive reskilling imperative. The ethical question for companies like TCS is what responsibility they have to help these employees transition. It's a wake-up call that in an AI-dominated world, continuous learning isn't just a nice to have, it's a survival skill.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.